everybody, I just got back from a 3-mile run, and so I'm going to do a little melt. If you'd like to melt along, you can use either of these two rollers to do the map I'm going to show you. I'm just going to do a quick little 10-minute recovery map so that I don't have to pay the price of my running. So I'm going to do a quick body scan. You guys who know about common imbalances that many of us possess that are left unaddressed from day to day. If you lie on your back with your palms up and your arms and legs extended, 4 things you want to notice. If you're lying down and it feels like all your back weight's up on your shoulder blades, if you're sensing a really big arch in your low back, it starts somewhere where women define the bra line. Mine's very lifted right now. I can feel all of this is lifted. I don't normally feel that way. I just went for a nice long run. If you're feeling your tailbone more than your butt cheeks or the back of your thighs feel off the ground, definitely signs of accumulative stress that we could get rid of so that we don't have to compress our joints unnecessarily. And then to identify if your autopilot is functioning efficiently, divide yourself into your left and right half. And do you feel balanced from left to right? I kind of feel a little more weighted to my right side. So there's my assessment. So now I'm going to come up. I'm going to use the performance roller for this first piece. So you could use the full roller though. So I'm going to sit up on the roller. I'm going to put my hands nice and wide, fingers pointed to the outside, and I'm going to start gliding on what I call my tail triangle, which is scientifically known as your sacrum. So your sacrum, where your sacrum attaches to your pelvis, is called the SI joint. And we like when that thing has no tenderness to it. So to assess that, I can glide with my knees a little tip to either side and just notice if I've got any tenderness. I would say maybe my right side today is a little tender. So here nor there, I'm going to come down to my side hips. So these are the internal hip rotators. And for a lot of us, these can get really tight after running. So I'm going to glide around here. I'm going to start with this big sweeping stroke to just prepare those sensory nerves so that I don't go too deep too fast. And then I'm going to home in on any barriers, any areas that feel a little sticky or restricted. See if I find any of those. I got one right here. So I'm going to shear this. So I'm not going right on the area that hurts me the most or that feels the most tender and the thickest. I'm going to go just above it or below it. I'm going to create this little shearing effect. You see I'm kind of shifting my body left and right. I could also do an indirect shear. I could play on my leg in and out. Or I could straighten my leg and I could move my body over the roller. Now if you're gliding and you feel that you've got more tenderness towards your hip bone, you could also lean forward, put your hand on the ground, and do that same cross friction, that same direct shear by pinning the skin and creating a twist like this. And then same thing, I'm going to wait here for a second, give the tissue a moment to adapt. And then let's do the same thing on the other side. Now you can just tip your body over a little bit. I'll come around this way so you can see what I'm doing. Same thing, down onto your forearm you go, and you're going to start gliding. So remember, when you glide first, you're gliding to prepare the superficial fascia and where all those sensory nerves are. We don't want to go too deep too fast. So again, I'm going to kind of find anything that feels tender. And if I find a tender spot, either closer to my tail or closer to my hip bone, once I think I've found something that either feels thick, tender, or somewhat restricted, I'm going to not land on that most tender spot. I'm going to meet it, and then I'm going to shear it. I'm either going to drag my body back and forth, so I'm pinning the skin between the interfaces of my bones and the roller to create a shear effect. I can also contract the muscle that I am on to also induce an indirect shear, or I could straighten my leg, I could roll my body over the roller, and again, if you found that it was closer to your hip that you wanted to shear, just lean into it a little bit more and you'll get the same thing. And then same thing, we'll wait here for a second. Sounds like we're in a thoroughfare. My brother lives right near a street, what can I tell you? Okay, so another area that you definitely want to work on after running is your back, right? Because running and the stride, if your hips are at all tight, if your ribs don't move well, that could also create some issues. So I'm going to do another assessment called rib length. So I'm going to keep my pelvis in a tuck, and I'm going to try to differentiate my ribs from my neck and my low back. So I'm not trying to move everything, just my rib cage, and just kind of noticing for any tightness to extend. And then I'm also going to see if anything feels tight going into side bending. Now we were in the ocean yesterday, which was freezing, but my ribs, my side bend, I feel pretty tight on both sides because we were swimming. We were really doing paddling. So I'm going to come up, I'm going to glide on my upper back. So I'm above the bra line here. And again, I'm starting with a big glide to kind of prepare those sensory nerves in that superficial area. But then I'm going to use my glide to kind of home in on anything that feels tender. And even if I don't think I find a tender spot, I might just want to find one point on my spine, curl my body forward, and then create a shear with a tiny tipping action. So I'm sort of pinning the skin and like opening up a safety-proof child bottle cap. I'm arcing bones above the area of compression. And then I wait there for a second, plant my feet, push into my feet. I'm gonna move myself down a little bit. I'm gonna create that same easy gliding. So the nice thing about melting is once you know how to do it, it's really quick to kind of move yourself through it because you know what you're looking for and you get more body savvy with using body sense and noticing what you feel. So same thing, I'm a little bit lower now. Same thing, I'm gonna shear that one. I'm gonna keep my abdominals kind of engaged, creating that side bending. And then I'm gonna wait here for a second, give the tissue just a moment to adapt. And then I'm gonna rinse. I'm gonna lift up my hips, bring my knees atop my ankles, roller comes right up to my shoulders. And then in one nice curling pass, like a banana, I'm gonna curl my body over that roller. I'm gonna reset my feet, lift up my hips, bring my body back up on top. Same thing, push and rinse it. Let's go one more time like that. Lift up our hips, same thing, sink, push, and rinse. So now let's reassess and see if that helps any movement in my rib cage. So same thing, I'm gonna come into, much better, into extension and into side bending. And it's amazing how if you just stimulate a little bit of fluid flow in fascia, how your bones just move easier. It's just it's just an easy way to change what we feel. Now, one last place. Now I could be working on my front thigh, on my inner thigh, on my outer thigh, but one area for sure for my runner friends is to work on your calf. So let's pick two spots. I want you to go on your calf. You're gonna cross one ankle over the other. Don't flex your foot. Keep your foot nice and relaxed, and we're gonna glide. So now here, again, I could start with a big glide, but what you really wanna home in on when you're doing calf is when you bend your knee to press into the back of the roller, and then when your leg straightens out, be on the top of the roller. Try to keep your pressure constant, leaning a little bit inward or outward with the legs. See if you find anything that feels tender. Again, if you find one of those barriers, meet your barrier, and then either flexing and pointing your ankle or making circular shapes, or again, I could roll my leg over the roller. But what I want you to really feel is you're pinning the skin as you're rolling. I could also really pin it and create more of a scratching action. And then same thing, wait there for a second, give the tissue a moment to adapt. And then you're gonna move the roller down a little bit lower. Now, again, you could pick 2 or 3 areas. I'm just showing you some of the things that I would do. And you see how I'm up on my shoulders? Really, if I were doing this without y'all, I'd probably have this roller behind my head and kind of be hanging out and checking my emails and what happened over today or whatever. I don't really have to think too much about this one. Yeah, just get lazy and relaxed as you do it. Again, prepare as the glide, then shear to actually create some effect in the cells. And again, you can roll it, you could twist it, you could contract muscle by moving your ankle. And then you go over to the other side, same thing. So nice, easy little gliding here. So your calves for sure, you need, hydrated when you run. So even working a little bit on your calves before a run can really help you out because it's going to help with that elastic property that you need when you run. So again, you find one of those tender spots. Again, you're going to shear it. You can make little circular motions or U-shaped with your ankle. We could roll the leg over, or again, we could pin the skin and scratch it. And then same thing, I'm just going to wait there for a second. And then we're going to move the roller down a little bit more. And same thing, I'm going to start gliding. Kind of turning the calf a little inward or outward. Again, finding those areas that feel tender. You find one of those tender spots. You could either make circular motions with your ankle, roll it left to right. Again, pinning the skin so you're kind of rolling something on the inside of your body. Or again, we can scratch it. Same thing, we're going to wait there for a second, give the tissue a moment to adapt. Okay, so instead of rinsing, we're going to use a little bit of lower body length. Just to finish this up today, I'm going to bring the roller up onto my hips. The 2 things that you have to know to do this is pelvic position and roller position. So the roller is under the nice wide part of the back of my pelvis. It's not up in my low back. And the 2 positions you have to know are a tuck and a tilt. So I'm going to use the tuck and we're going to go for a bent knee press. So I'm going to try to get my left foot nice and firm on the ground. I don't want to feel I've got any compromising contraction in my hamstrings. Once I'm here, I'm going to accentuate my tuck by really activating my core. And then Knee to knee, I'm going to think about pulling one knee towards my nose as the other knee energizes towards my toe. It's a whole body event. When you do lengthening techniques, you got to get super savvy with length. Whereas with compression, you can kind of be sloppy and lazy about it. This, you definitely have to know what you're doing. And then on the other side, same thing. I'm going to find the ball of my big toe, outside of my foot, center of my heel, tucking my pelvis. And again, energizing knee to knee away from each other. Inhaling, kind of easing back some of that pressure. And one more time. Again, I could do other melt moves that you'll find on Melt on Demand, like figure 4, hip to heel rotating cross, side bending. There's all sorts of things to do. But let's just see what that map does for me right now. So same thing, I'm just going to come back down and reassess. So those are just some simple things that you can do. And on Melt on Demand, I've got a whole bunch of running videos for those of you who actually do run, or you're just walking, you're exercising, whatever. Make sure that you guys keep your body as stable and focused as you possibly can. And again, if you really want to see these things for real and practice and refine your skills, go to meltmethod.com and you'll find Melt on Demand. And every week I put out a new video and we've got a whole bunch of ones for running and exercise. I'm gonna go jump in the pool. I hope you guys have an awesome Sunday. Happy melting.